One of the most exciting aspects of Nucona's App Center is the ability to apply policy without requiring any changes to the underlying apps. Let's take a look at how it works. A developer creates an application in exactly the same way that they normally would. There's no SDK required, there are no APIs to use, the developer doesn't need to have any kind of in-depth understanding of mobile security. All they do is create their regular IPA or APK file for iOS or Android respectively, and then log into the App Center when it's ready for distribution and upload the file. The administrator can set specific policy elements that can then be applied to an application or a group of applications. These elements can include whether the user is required to authenticate before launching the application, and if so, whether they need to re-authenticate after a particular period of time, for example, every 30 minutes or so, whether local storage is allowed on the device, and if so, whether the data that's written onto the device is required to be encrypted or not, whether offline access is allowed, and if so, whether a PIN is required to access the application before launch. And there are a number of APIs that can be restricted or enabled, such as document sharing to enable or disable the ability to use the doc sharing APIs for Dropbox or Box.net or equivalent, or other APIs such as copy, cut, paste of data, the ability to open a URL from within an app, and so on. It's also possible to restrict network connections to a specific group of servers or IP addresses in order to be able to ensure that the application is securely accessing only the corporate data center or the appropriate set of servers. The administrator can then create a library of policies so that it makes it very easy to be able to apply different restrictions onto different applications or sets of applications. For example, very secure applications may require no offline access allowed, any local data that's written to always be encrypted with the keys off the device, user authentication required every 10 minutes, and no document sharing allowed. Whereas maybe a less secure application, maybe an expense reporting app or something, you don't mind whether the data is encrypted, you don't mind them having offline access, you don't mind if they share it with Dropbox to their home computer to work on their expenses at home, and so on. So you can create various policy sets that have got various levels of security depending on the sensitivity of the data that the app will be accessing. So when the administrator is ready to apply a particular policy to the application, basically what happens is the set of standard libraries that would be accessing the operating system in the mobile device, such as to open a file or to write a file and things like that, are replaced by the Nucona policy managed versions, such that the relevant policies are actually baked into the application automatically. The wrapped application can now be distributed via the Enterprise App Store, and the administrator will then identify the user or groups of users that are authorized to be able to receive the application. When the user downloads the application to the device, the app is able to be completely co-resident with any of the other applications on the device. The user has their own personal apps, then those apps have their own personal data. But now we can also have on the same device different corporate applications with different levels of security, with the data being managed by the application and the policies that have been applied before the app was downloaded. So it's possible to have specific policies per app, per user, with different security levels. One of the other capabilities related to being able to have the policy managed apps is that we can do what's known as pinpoint app revocation in a way that allows us to delete an application and its data without having any negative impact whatsoever on any of the other applications that are resident on the device. Nucona also enables the policy management of web applications. Nucona provides a secure browser, and that browser can be policy managed in the same way that the native applications can. So it's possible to do all the restrictions like enforcing user authentication or adding encryption and so on to the web application. As far as the user is concerned, they just see another application, they download it and they run it, except instead of launching in Chrome or Safari or whatever browser they might have on their device, it will launch in the secure browser, which has got all of the policy management built in, so that the web application is then under control of IT in the same way that native apps are. So that's a brief summary of Nucona's policy management capability. No requirement to change the underlying applications, no SDKs, no APIs, the ability to be able to apply policy separate to the app logic, and therefore allow IT to take control and have governance over the applications as they are delivered out into a mobile environment, even if those mobile devices are not owned or under the control of IT.